All right, with Hashem's help, we're going to learn Yevamos Daf Mem Beis. We left off yesterday in Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, Tana Rabbanan, learning the din of Avchana. Tana Rabbanan, repeating the din of the Mishnah, Yevamos Shecholtzo La'achim B'Seich Shloisha, that if Reuven married Rachel and he passes away, you need to have a 3-month wait, even for Chalitza to be done. And if Chalitza was done within the first 3 months, just because Chalitza was done, it will not allow her to marry someone else. Tzricha lahamtim shloisha chadoshim, she needs to wait to 3 months. However, Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis la'achar gimel, once the 3 months passed, and now Chalitza was done, let's say between Shimon and Rachel, ein tzricha lahamtim gimel chadoshim, she no longer needs to wait another 3 months. End of Braisa explains the Gemara Heve, learn from here that Hagimel HaChadoshim Sha'amru, that the 3-month wait needed is only Mishas Misas Habal, it's only from the passing of the first husband, V'loi Mishas Chalitzas Hayavim, and not from the Chalitza. L'chayra Pshita, not Pshita. You might have thought that you need to wait 3 months from the final dissolution of the marriage. When was the real marriage dissolved? Not by the death of Reuven, because she's now Zakuk, she's waiting, she's a Zakuka. When is she completely freed, so to say, Lashuk, after she gets Chalitza? So you would have thought maybe even after Chalitza you have to wait 3 months, and mind you, that we learned in Daf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph in the Mishnah, the Chachamim hold that even between engagement and engagement you have to have 3 months. In other words, now that the Chachamim said 3 months, it's not dafka from marriage to marriage, according to the Chachamim. So it's not only about knowing who the dad is, because a woman who is engaged never had a relation with her chassan. She will not be pregnant. So one could have argued, even though she already waited 3 months, and only now she got chalitza from Shimon, maybe you got to wait 3 months. We don't say that. Question is, why not? And my tama, so ask the Gemara, Maishnami get. Why is this different than the din of a get? And we give a great example. First of all, to know the next piece of a Gemara, we have to just review something we learned together. That once a man writes a get for his wife, he's no longer allowed to be alone with her in the room. He cannot have yichud with her. If he has yichud with her, then there's a possibility that they were intimate together. If they were intimate together, ein adam oisa bi'ilase bi'ilaz nus, there's a possibility that the kavana of them being together was to, so to say, nullify the get, and another get needs to be written. So now that we have such a din, the get was written today. Let's say the get was given in a week from now, which is common. It's lav dafke given on the same day. This din of the Chachamim of us needing to wait 3 months, does it go from the writing of the get or from the giving of the get? Now, from when the get was written, they're no longer allowed to be together. There we're going to see that there's an opinion. Rav says from Mishas Nesina, from when the get is given. What does that prove? That the Rav's understanding of the din of waiting 3 months is not 3 months from when they were together. They were not together from the ksiva. Nevertheless, Rav says you only start counting from the giving, because when was the marriage dissolved? From the giving. So the kasha really is against Rav. Just like by a get, Rav understands the din of 3 months, it's from the dissolution of the marriage, from the nesina. Why would we not say over here, wait 3 months after the chalitza? Only Shmuel says mishas ksiva, which really would mean that Shmuel holds it's from when they can be together. And once the get was written, they can't be together, they're not going to have yichud, they're not going to be together. So Shmuel works with our braisa. What about Rav? Kasha, so to say, against Rav. So answers the Gemara Amar Rava. Rava says the following, that here, like the way the wordings of Tosfos is, the Chachamim don't want to make a decree if people who hear it will so to say, laugh or mock the Chachamim. And it's going to become a chucha telula, the Chachamim will lose their respect. What will people say? They'll say, Al Kal V'Chomer, Isur Kares Hitarto. Reuven is married to Rachel. If Rachel is pregnant with a viable child, then Shimon marrying her is a violation, is an erev of Eshes Ach. After 3 months passed from the death of Reuven, Shimon is allowed to do Yibum. So imagine, 3 months is enough to be matter in Isur of Eishes Ach. However, Isur Lav Lekal Shchen, Chalitza, a woman who did not get not Chalitza nor Yibum is usher to marry another person, Yevama Lashuk, not as an erva, only as a lav. So if the waiting of 3 months takes away the Isur erva, then for sure to take away an Isur lav. And if the Chachamim would say that you have to wait 3 months even after the Chalitza, people would find it funny. They would find it illogical. Even though there is a logic, but they would find it illogical. So the Chachamim didn't want to say something, make a decree that people would reject. So they said, even according to Rav, who holds that by a get, it's Mishas Nesina. By death and Chalitza is from the death of the husband. Continues the Gemara, V'chein shar kol hanoshim, that this din of waiting 3 months isn't only in the case of Yibum, but in between any 2 marriages. Really, we learned before opinions that hold even out of marriage, even of znus, that if a woman had a relation with another man, with one man, even out of marriage, that was the whole sugya before. If we say it, if we don't say it, you have to have the havchan of 3 months.
Can we say
Yeah, for sure, the Chachamim hold Leipluk. So now the Gemara says, Bishleim Yevamo. The reason why you have to wait 3 months, this is not just to know who the father is. Here by a Yibum, you have to wait 3 months because if the widow is pregnant with a viable child, Yibum is an Isur Erva. Kida Amra. Eloshar Kol Hanoshim Amai. Even though we spoke this out before, this is the Gemara that's explaining it. Why do you have to wait? Who cares? There's no Isur over here. She got divorced from Reuven. Let her marry Chaim. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Mishum do Amar Krat says in a pasuk. The pasuk says V'hakimoisi es briti beini ubeinecha ubein zaracha lideroisam bris oilam, that Hashem makes a covenant with the Jewish people, an everlasting covenant, which is, what's the covenant? Lihiyois l'cha le'elokim, that Hashem will be our Elokim. Hashem is everyone's God. These are these psukim that are explained properly in Chassidus. It means that the gilui, that the revealed connection between Hashem and the Jewish people, that revealed Shechina is the covenant. That there's something apparent, something begilui, that Hashem is connected to the Jewish people. And that is Lizaracha Acharecha. That goes to all of the Jewish people forever. That Hashem will always be in a revealed way the God of the Jewish people. And we call that a covenant. So it says the Gemara, that being that the pasuk uses the words Ulazaracha Acharecha, that this bris of Hashem being our Elokim is to all future generations. When do we have this bris? When it's clear that we are the children of the previous generation. But if we don't know, if a child doesn't know who his parent is, even if for sure his parents are Jews, nevertheless, just not knowing who the father is, so to say, hides, is ma'alim over this covenant that Hashem gave us. Lahafchin, and we have to know, ben zarei shel rishon lezarei shel sheni. And being, as the Gemara is going to talk out later, especially during the times of the Chazal, that you had a concept of a 7th-month pregnancy, and the Gemara is going to work it out with all the details, fantastic, why 3 months resolve it. But if, like we said before, a woman were to wait 2 months, and she'll get Yibum, and 7 months after the Yibum she'll give birth, then people are going to say, well, maybe the father was Shimon, the brother, and it's a pregnancy that took only 7 months to gestate, a gestation of 7 months, or maybe it was from the passing 9 months after the passing. So it was a zera of the Reuven. And if we have such a question, then there's going to be a covering over of the covenant with this Jewish child.
How does this explanation explain the Laplug?
No. This doesn't yet. This is why you have to wait between marriage and marriage. And then on top of that, you have a machlekes tanoim. So we're not even going into the why each Tana, we're just going into the general concept.
It makes the Laplug more difficult.
Well, no. It makes the plug normal. That's why, without a plug, first you have to, what does it come from? And then how do you apply it? It comes from this concept that you have to be mafchin, hafchana, who the father is. Frekt Rava, Masav Rava, we learned in a Braisa that this din of hafchana doesn't only go between one man and another man. Right? She was married to Reuven, and Reuven dies or divorces her, and she's marrying Shimon or Chaim. No. What happens if you have two people that are living together in a marriage, goyim, and they both convert? Even over there, we say that after they were Megayer, they have to wait 3 months before they can be together. Now over there, we know who the father is. She's not going from one man to another man. So if the only reason is to know who the father is, l'cha'ira, when a ger and a giyoris, if both the man and the woman who were together as goyim, now both convert, and now they both stay together, they get married, al pidin, kadas Moshe v'Yisrael, we learned that it says in a Braisa, l'tzrichim lahamtim gimel chadashim, and if the whole reason is, as we explained from the pasuk of Shmuel, liyes l'chalalakim, hachemai lahavchin ika. Here we know who the father is. Says the Gemara, a great answer. Hachinami ika lahavchin bein zera shenizra b'kedusha lezera shlenizra b'kedusha. Even though we know who the father is, but we don't know if they won't wait the 3 months. Did she become pregnant when the father was a not Jew yet, before the Gerus, or after? And I'll go a step further. Here it's not only to know who the dad is. Once a woman converts, even though the father also converted, if she was pregnant before the father converted, then the father halachically is not considered the father of the child. Biologically he's the father, but he's not considered the father when it comes to genealogy, to yichus. So here again, and there's no yichus there. And who cares? We care. For this bris, we need to know who the dad is, who the halachic father is. So that's the first answer. Comes along Rava, and Rava gives another answer. Now Rava doesn't go against the first answer, but Rava says it's not only about having this bris olam, but Rava says if you will not decree, again, Ronnie, this doesn't answer your loy plug, just a general idea. If you have to have the 3 months, what were to happen if you don't have the 3 months? Rava says, Gzeira is going to give 4 takolos that can come out if you don't wait the 3 months. Some of them are erva midoiraisa. Number 1, a erva, a doubt of an erva, Gzeira shema yisa esa choysema aviv. Understand the psychology here. A woman is married, let's say, to Reuven, and she gets divorced. And now she marries Chaim. And she's pregnant, and she gives birth. Who do you think the mother would want the father to be, if she can choose such a thing?
The new one.
The new one. Because as much as a stepfather can love a child, still it's easier for a man to undertake the obligations towards a child when he knows that this is my child. So she's going to be claiming the whole time, this is your child. The child will be raised as the son of the second. We'll call them the first, A and B, without names. Now, what were to happen if really the child was fathered by the first, and there he fathered another daughter? So this child who's thinking that he's the child of number 2 might end up marrying his sister from number 1. That's a Isur Ever Deraisa. That's one reason why we want to be sure who the father is. For no one to be able to claim mistakenly, you were fathered by the second. Number 2, that the yibeng eishes achiv me'imai. Another possibility that might happen. What happens if he again is being raised as the child of number 2? This second marriage produced another son, vadai, from the second marriage. And this other son got married and died without children. Where do you have a mitzvah siyibum? Only to the paternal brother. There, the Eishes Ach Isur goes away, and it's replaced with the mitzvah of yibum. But if he's not the brother paternally, then what is the wife of his maternal's brother, Eishes Ach? And if he's going to do yibum, he's going to live with an erva. Another problem. The yoitzi es imoy l'shuk. Let's go to another case. Let's say that he's the only child that was born. Not in this marriage. Let's go to the first marriage. Reuven, the first marriage produced him. No one knows that it's him. No, the second marriage. The second marriage is the first husband divorced his wife, and now this woman gets married to the second husband, and they give birth to one other child. The first one dies, What happens when the first one dies? The second one dies. He's the only child of the second marriage, and he's not even the child of the second marriage. So now that if this second man is going to die, and he has brothers, so what do we say? We say that if he did not leave children, then she has to do yibum. But they're going to think that he left a child. And therefore, since he left a child, she doesn't fall to yibum. They're going to be matar her l'shuk, but wrongfully so, because really he's the child of the first. Another takal. And the fourth possibility, which something can go wrong, the yiftad es yivim toy l'shuk. The opposite. What's v'yiftad es yivim toy l'shuk? That when is there a mitzvah of yibum? Only if you have a brother. If you don't have any brothers, if a man dies and he's childless but there's no brothers, then she can get married l'shuk. So if there was another child in the first marriage, say it's a sibling of his, really his brother, but no one knows that. They think he's from the second marriage. And he'll die, so they're going to say his wife can marry any person who she wants because there's no brothers. But really he is a brother. And therefore he really did have a chiyuv of yibum, but people won't know that. All this comes from people normally saying, she'll say the wife that he was fathered by her second. So therefore you have to wait 3 months to know who the dad is because of a problem of an erva.
These examples, or
these are 4 possibilities. These are the 4 possibilities.
More than
No.
these 4 takals?
No. And this has to do aside of it's good to know who the dad is. So Masav Rab Hananya against Rava's second answer, it says in a Braisa that Bikulan Ani Koide Behem Shum Takanas Ervam, that when it comes to a case of Yavam and a Yevama, where they said to wait 3 months. Why did the Chachamim say to wait 3 months? Because of a takanas erva, by yibum. We explained that. Because if the wife is taka pregnant with a viable child, then if the brother does yibum, he's actually violating the erva of Eshes Ach. However, it says in the Braisa, when the Chachamim gave this decree of waiting 3 months, by all marriages, by other marriages, it's only become takanas velad. It's some rectification of the child, meaning it's just good to know who the dad is. But according to Rava, and even if not Rava is saying something logical, even by other women, saying that you have to wait 3 months is also to prevent an erva prohibition to happen. Ve'imisa kulu mishum takanas erva, not only by the case of Yibum. So the Gemara answers that's what it means. That hai mishum takanas vlad, the meaning of takanas vlad is the loy livga bohu erva. That normally, when it comes to a Yibam and a Yevama, if you wouldn't wait the 3 months, who might violate an Isur Erva, God forbid? The widow, the older generation. But when it comes to other marriages, that's the meaning of the Braisa. Because 2 of the 4 examples was that the child himself might violate, he might marry a sister, which he himself might not, we won't know who the dad is. That the Vlad might violate an Isur Erva. And now we're going to go through this is a fantastic Gemara. Okay, we all understand that we need to know who the father is. Because of the Bris Olam, because of the 4 possibilities. But why dafka 3 months? Why isn't there another time period that could resolve the problem? So first I'll talk out one thing by heart. And we mentioned this before when we were learning other shiurim in Masechta Yevamos. That when the gestation is a 9-month gestation, right? Then you have to have 9 months and actually 9 full months. When a gestation is a 7 months gestation, then 7 months is the full term. We'll see later it's not even 7 months. That in a 7th month ibur, you can be born in the beginning of the 7th month. But one thing is for sure, a baby that's born in the 8th month is considered a non-viable child. And in the times of Chazal, they would die, or the vast majority would die. Which is why on Shabbos there are muksa. And you don't do a bris on the 8th day to an 8th month child. In other words, you can't say that if the child would have been finished in 7th month, then 8th month is no matter which type of gestation it is, 8th month is for sure not a viable child.
What happened to the 7 months full term today?
I don't know. It should still exist. It's probably something very rare, but there's such a din. It doesn't change. Even in Metzias, it doesn't change. It's just not that common. Reiv was 9, but 7 was something that happened. No, on Shabbos. Now says the Gemara, Bishleim.
7, yes.
Yes, but
If it's not premature.
yes. 7th month gestation, you do the bris. If the baby was born on Shabbos, not cesarean, then you do the bris on Shabbos on the 8th day. Let's go. Bishleim, ask the Gemara, Bishleim tamten beis chadashim tinasa loy. Waiting 2 months, like we explained before. Let's speak about a case, a man died. Not even. Stam. Reuven is married to Rachel. Reuven dies. If 2 months were to pass and Chaim would marry Rachel, and exactly 9 months from the marriage, she'll give birth. So there'll be 2 options. Not 9 months, 7 months from the marriage. 7 months from the marriage is 9th month from the passing of the first. So waiting 2 months is not good. Hainu sveika. People won't know. Ibar tisha lakama, ibar shiva labasra. Ask the Gemara, Elo tamten chodesh echad v'tinasei. Let them say, wait 1 month and get married. Why? Because v'im, wait 1 month. And what were to happen if they'll get married? And 7 months will go from the second marriage and she'll give birth. What will it be? It's for sure going to be a baby from the second marriage. Because if it were to be a baby from the first marriage, they only waited month, then what month would this be? An 8th month baby. You don't have an 8th month baby. Verstehst? And if it's going to V'i Shiva Yolda, and if the baby will be born, if you only wait 1 month, if the baby will be born after 7th month, so you'll know for sure that Hai Bar Shiva Labasrahu. V'i Letamya Yolda, and if she'll give birth 8th month after her second marriage, what will that prove? That the baby is for sure whose? From the first. Because 8th month after the marriage, there's no baby after 8th month. It must be a 9th month from the first marriage. And Haibar Tisha Lekamahu. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why 1 month won't be enough. Because Inama Letam Yolda. Because let's say she'll wait only 1 month. And then 8 months will pass and she'll give birth. So what are you telling me? Aha! It's 8 months. It can't be from the second marriage. It must be 9th month from the first nishtamis, the Gemara says. Because who says that she got pregnant right away with the second marriage? If she would wait 1 month, she would give birth 8 months later. Someone would say, who fathered it? The second husband. But she didn't get pregnant the night of the wedding. A month after the wedding, she got pregnant. That's why 1 month is not enough. Because if she would only wait 1 month, even if 8 months will pass, people can claim the basrahu, that the baby is from the second marriage. Dilma maybe after she got married, 1 month passed, and only then v'iyabar. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Why 3 full months? Say only wait 2.5 months. And here it's going to work out because the Shiva Yolda, she waited 2.5 months. Let's work this out. And now she gets married. 7th month after the marriage goes on and she has a baby, for sure, it's a second, no question. Then Hai Bar Shiva Labasro. And the Shita Upalga Yolda, if she will give birth 6.5 months after her wedding, now we are thinking that a 7th month gestation needs 7 full months. So if only 6.5 months go by, so we're going to say 6.5 plus the 2.5 is 9. And we'll know for sure. Hai bar tisha lekamahu. Because the I bar basru, because if it's going to be from the second marriage, bar shito palgo lechaya, that's what people are going to say. So the Gemara says, Inami lishito upalga yolda. No. Waiting 2.5 months will not work, because if she will give birth 6.5 months after her second marriage, we will have the doubt. People will still say the basru, that maybe the father was the second, the new dad, because a 7th month gestation period does not need full 7 months. Because the Amar Marzutra, even according to the opinions that hold that a 9th month gestation will not suffice with partial 9 months, broken 9 months, an abbreviated 9 months. You need to have full, but Yolda Lazayin. But a baby that's born in a 7th month gestation period, does not need a full 7 months. And how do we know it? Because it says when it comes to the birth of Shmuel, right? Chana was married to Elkanah, And after she davened in the Beis Hamikdash, it says, Vayihi litkufais hayamim. The word kufa means a season. Litkufais means seasons, Lashon Rabim. The year has 4 seasons. So how many months are each season? 3 months. So when it says litkufais hayamim, seasons, days, how much time passed with Chana being pregnant with Shmuel? Tkufais yamim, 6 months and 2 days. Not full 7 months. Miut kufais beis. Miut yamim beis. And therefore, if she would only wait 2.5 months, we would still have the same doubt. Just lahoid al pi Kabbalah, children that are gestated a lesser amount of time are people whose neshamas tikkun in the world has less to do with Gashmias and more to do with Ruchnias, which was Shmuel. The longer a child is in his mother's womb, that means the more of his mission's connection to the physical world is. And we have a concept in Kabbalah of a 12-month gestation period. I don't know if that means physical, but it means a conceptual. Those children's, their main mission is to elevate the physical world. We have a tradition that Eliyahu Navi, who was, let's say, his Pinchas, he was pregnant for a full 12 months. Which is why such a person, Eliyahu Navi, went up to the heavens with his body. He elevated even his guf.
We say Moshe Rabbeinu was the Shiva.
That's right. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu's body stayed here. Exactly. As says the Gemara, now v'tamtin, final question is mashuhu v'tinasi. Why do we have to have a full 3 months? Why don't you only give a little bit of time? Machlokas Rashi Tosfos what mashu means. Rashi says 1 or 2 weeks. Tosfos says, if you look to the side, the Tamton, Tosfos says only 3 days. Can you imagine? But a very little amount of time should be enough. Because why? Because we learned that after 3 months, you can tell if the woman is pregnant or not. So why don't you say, let's say Rashi, wait a week or 2. Wait 1 week, and she'll get married to the new husband. Exactly 3 months from the passing of the first husband, exactly 3 months from the get of the first husband, there was an examination. The Gemara doesn't talk it out right now, but it was an intimate examination. Obviously, it was done by another woman, that they would check the breast of this wife, of this woman who was married once and now married again. And you can tell exactly after 3 months if milk is beginning to develop, which means if she's pregnant or not. So if you since you had this option then of discovering exactly 3 months into pregnancy, if a woman is pregnant, make this examination. If she's pregnant and you can discover it, then you know for sure it's from the first husband, because she got married a week later. So it's missing a week. And if she's not yet developing the way a pregnant woman would develop, then you know for sure she's not pregnant from the first husband. So why make her wait 3 months? Make this examination. So Amar Absafra ein boitkin es anasuya is that a woman who's married should not undergo such an examination. Sheloi yizganu al baleim, somehow they will become repulsed by their husbands, either by them knowing that they need to undergo such an examination, or whatever the psychology is, that
their husbands will become repulsed from them.
That their husbands they'll become, no. We're speaking about a woman marrying again. So she was married to one husband. The Mishnah says that any woman between one marriage and the other has to wait 3 months. Why? Let her wait only a week. And let her undergo this bedika, this examination, exactly 3 months from the passing of the first husband, from the get of the first husband. So the Gemara says that the new husband will become repulsed from her. He would not want to be with her if she would have to undergo such an examination. So says the Gemara, but there's another type of bedika. This other type of bedika is not an intimate examination, but a woman who was pregnant, her steps are heavier. So again, let us wait exactly 3 months. This examination was done by the woman walking in sand or in some type of loose earth, and from the imprint of her feet, you compare that, you contrast with the woman who has her same weight, but who's for sure not pregnant, and the one who is pregnant goes into the ground deeper. That's not a foolproof examination. That isha machapa atzma, that a woman can make herself lighter. And again, like we said before, a woman would rather her child be considered the child of the second husband, of her new husband. So since it's not a full proof, so therefore you have to wait a full 3 months.
So how does pregnancy test and DNA testing
That's a big question. Halachically now, do we or do we not? The din is that we do not. Once the Chachamim said you got to wait 3 months, now that it became a din, like any other takanas Chachamim, even though that now there are ways to do havchana because of technology, you have to have the 3 months. There are exceptions, but not for right now. There are exceptions. Let's move on.
We hold the 3 months.
Not in all cases, generally. In fact, that's the case. Once you have 3 months, you have the havchana. So why don't we say a new question now that 3 months passed? And let's say we recognize the woman is pregnant from the first husband. Let her at least get married now, because now we will know it's from the first husband. Allah matanya, why did we learn? Why did we learn that a man is not allowed to marry a woman if she is pregnant from another man, or even if a woman gave birth already, but she's still nursing her child, and the nursing period then was 24 months. Halacha l'maisa today, do you wait 24 months? Again, that's debated. You have a lot of people today, you have a Reb Shlomo Kluger that says that being that in his days no one nursed more than 18 months, he only made it on 18 months, but this is not for now, this is big shilas. Do we apply today or not? But in the Chazal said you have to wait 24 months. Why do you have to wait 24 months? You have the havchana. And not only that, we learned together machlekes tanoim, but one Tana held that if a man married meuberes chaveiroi, menekes chaveiroi, you penalize him, you have to divorce her, and even if he's a non-kohen, you can never remarry her. Yoitz v'leyachzor your lamis. So the Gemara says that's for a whole different reason, explains the Gemara. Shema tasa ubara sandal. Again, machlekes Rashi Tosfos. We learned all this before. That the Chazal hold, according to Rashi, that even when a woman is already pregnant, she could conceive a new child. Not a viable new child, but she conceive a new child enough for the second child to kill the first child, to crush the first child. So she might kill the first child. Ask the Gemara right away. Tosfos disagrees with that. Tosfos says that sandal means that the act of intimacy itself will hurt the first child. But if that's the case, then why did Chazal only answer a man having a relation with the wife, with the woman, if she's carrying someone else's child? What happens in a married couple themselves? If a woman is already pregnant, then the Chazal should have said that once you discover your wife is pregnant, you can't be with her, because shamatasa ubara sandal. And so the Gemara says, no. That according to the Manda Amr that holds that the 3 women are allowed to use a moich, including a pregnant woman, so then you use a moich. According to the Manda Amr that says that Shomer P'sayim Hashem, that God will protect him, min hashamayim yirachamu. So a man can be with his wife, either taka you have to take precautions for her not to get pregnant again, or you can rely on God's protection. So the Gemara says, min hashamayim yirachamu, hachinami l'manda amr b'moich, l'manda amr b'shmayim yirachamu. So if she's pregnant with someone else's child, either tell her get married and use the contraception, or get married and God will protect the child. So the Gemara says, Elam mishum dechasa, that he's going to put pressure on her. So the Gemara says, if a man is going to put pressure, in other words, the act of intimacy could kill the child, so then who cares who the father is? Then again, a man should not be allowed to be intimate with his own wife, even if she's pregnant from him. So the Gemara answers, Didei chayis ilave, that if she's carrying his child, he'll have more rachmanis, he'll be more careful, and he won't put pressure. So the Gemara says, what logic is there to that? You know, if he's married to a woman, even if she's pregnant with someone else's child, hachinami chayis ilavi, he'll be gentle, and he won't hurt the child. Elo, the Gemara answers, tam meuberes lemenika kaima. Most children are born viable, and therefore most children will need to be nursed by their mother. So whether she's already nursing, meinekas chaveiroi, or even if she's only pregnant from someone else's child, the reason why a man cannot marry her is because, turning the page, Dilma I Abra, she might get pregnant, Iran, not now. She might get pregnant after she gives birth. She's pregnant with someone else's child. Nothing will happen to the child now, but after she'll give birth, she'll have to nurse him. If she'll be remarried, akar chelba, a woman who gets pregnant, that will affect the milk supply that she has. Mi'akar means it's going to ruin, or it's going to completely become depleted. And now she will no longer have food to feed the child from the first husband. The katlalei, the first child will die from the lack of food. So again, ask the Gemara, if we are afraid that she's going to lose her milk supply, so how is a man allowed to be with his own wife if she's nursing his other child? There should be Chazal decreeing a man cannot be with a woman from when she gets pregnant until after 24 months. So the Gemara says, Didei, either because of sandal during pregnancy, or because of losing her milk when she's a meinekes. So the Gemara says, Didei, memasmalei, that she'll supplement it, she'll nourish him, bebeitzim b'chalav. Even then, before there was formula, so then they used to feed an infant eggs and milk and give him enough nourishment to live, even if the mom lost the milk. So the Gemara says, one second, if there's a possibility to feed a child, even if the woman loses her milk, which is why a man who has his own child with his wife could have relations with her during the 24 months and we're not afraid that she'll lose her milk. So if she's nursing another child, you can also supplement it. And here the Gemara says that that if it's not his child, he might not pay the money to buy eggs and milk. So the Gemara says that the lace be'inei, in fact, the Gemara, if the husband is not going to give her money, let her take him to a din Torah. So if the man divorced his wife, she can take her husband to a din Torah, the first husband, to get money from him. If the first husband died, she's an almana, let her go take her children and say that I need to have money from his estate because this child was fathered by the first husband. Amar Abaye answers, Isha that a woman will be ashamed to take her husband or her first husband's children to a din Torah, and she will not have the money. The new husband won't pay for the milk and for the eggs, and vohereges as bana, and the child might die. Okay, difficult to understand this. We're blaming her, she's killing her son, the husband. But since there's such a possibility, the Chazal said that a man should not marry a woman who is nursing the child she has from her original husband. And what about Umi Oberes? So there's nothing fearful during the pregnancy itself, but she's pregnant with another person's child. So later she'll give birth, she'll have to nurse him. So that's why the Chazal made this takana. Okay, then the Mishnah, we spoke this out when we learned the Mishnah in Daf Mem Aleph, said that now that we have this din that you have to wait 3 months, even though the reasons that we gave was really from marriage to marriage, the Chachamim, unlike Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, made a loy plug. It's always. Now, the wordings in the Mishnah was very repetitive. Not only repetitive, it doesn't bother the Gemara. It seems that we're giving 6 different cases. Or 6 different possibilities, and there aren't all those possibilities. The Mishnah said, Echaz psulais ve'echad ba'ulais. Now, how can a married woman be a psula? That's only if the marriage was not consummated. She was only engaged, which is the opinion of the Chachamim. That even from engagement to engagement, you have to wait the 3 months. But the Mishnah says, psulais ba'ulais. The Mishnah says, nesuais and arusais, that's the same. So, frag the Gemara, haininu b'sulais, v'haininu arusais, haininu ba'ulais, haininu nesuais. And it's not different cases. So Rav Yehuda says, yeah, it's not different cases. The Mishnah is just explaining itself. That Hachi Ka'amar, Achas B'sulais V'achas B'ulais, which would mean, Shenis Armulo Enis Garshu, either from engagement, if she was engaged, if she was widowed or divorced from an engagement, she might even be a psula. Even there she has to wait 3 months. Or if she was divorced or widowed from marriage from the Nesuais, which is one explaining the other. It's not different cases. Says the Gemara, one day Rab Elazar, the Amoira, Rabbi Elazar, lo'ol lebei midrasha. He didn't go to shul one day, he wasn't feeling well, he went on a trip. And then he came back from Israel. And Ashkechel Rav Asi, and he found Rav Asi, and he wanted to know, what did he miss? Amar lei, my Amar Rabbanu Mei Midrasha. Tell me, when I was missing one day from the best medrash, what did the Chachamim say? So Amar lei, so Rav Asi told Rabbi Lazar that you know what you missed today? Hachi Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan paskint, halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. What did Rabbi Yossi say? Both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi basically said the same thing in our Mishnah. We don't say Eloi plug, that the havchana is only needed from marriage to marriage. We want to know who the father is. But if the woman was only engaged, and then he divorced her or he died, she can get married right away. Or reverse, if she was married to the first husband, she can get engaged right away. Aside of the exception of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Now, Tosfos Yeshanim points out, why did Rabbi Yechanan say halacha ke Rabbi Yossi? Why didn't they say halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda? And the answer, and it's good to remember this answer, that there's a general rule that halacha ke Rabbi Yossi, shenimukai imoi, that Rabbi Yossi always explained the reasons for his dinim, and it made a lot of sense. And normally the halacha was like Rabbi Yossi. When it was the majority against Rabbi Yossi, we didn't paskin like Rabbi Yossi. But if we have to choose between saying halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda or ke Rabbi Yossi, people then, b'chlal, they liked Rabbi Yossi, so they said halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. Michlal, for Rabbi Yechanan to say that, it must mean that he held that the Tanakama, who disagreed with Rabbi Yossi, wasn't all of the Chachamim, because if it would have been Chachamim against Rabbi Yossi, how can Rabbi Yechanan paskin like a Yechidah? So the Tanakama is also only the opinion of one. The Yechidah Poligoleo. And that's what Rabbi Lazar chapped. So according to Rabbi Yechanan must have understood that the Tanakama is only the opinion of one. Who is that one opinion? And why didn't Rabbi also give a name? We'll get to that in a moment. So the Gemara says, first of all, the Tanakama is the opinion of a Yachid. And we'll see the Yachid is Rabbi Meir. The Tanya, like we learned, this is Benichusa. Which, correct. We'll get to that in a moment. No, but still, why didn't he quote the name? Normally, he doesn't quote the name, Rebbe, because he wants to paskin that way. That's going to be a problem against Rabbi Yechanan. We'll get to that in a moment. If you don't say loy plug, if you wouldn't say loy plug, what happens if the woman was taka married, but we know for sure she's not pregnant from her first husband? A bunch of cases. She was redufa leilach labeisavia. This woman always hung out with her family, with her parents, and she was there. And her husband divorced her or died when she was there. Physically, they were not in the same city. She's not pregnant from the first husband. Or they were not getting along, and it's known that they were not together. Or the husband was in jail. And the Braisa here is going to give many scenarios where we know that she was not pregnant from the first husband. He was old. Or he was ill. She was ill. The husband died. 2 weeks later, a month later, she miscarried. Which means taka, she was pregnant, but she lost a child. So she's not pregnant again. Or she's an akara, or she's an older woman, or she's a minor, or she's an islandess, or she'ena ru'uya leiled. Not for now, but another time. We're going to go through all these cases of the Braisa. Each one is another option. The bottom line is, when we know for sure she's not pregnant, what did the Tanakam of our Mishnah say? Loi plug. That's this Braisa. It's always tzricha lahamtin gimel chadashim divrei Rabbi Meir. In other words, here there's a name, and it's not everyone, it's not Rabbim, it's not Chachamim, it's Rabbi Meir. This is all to back up Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yehuda mater li ares uli nasim miyad. Rabbi Yehuda allows her not only to get engaged right away, and in the previous cases to get married right away because she's not pregnant from the first husband. Okay, so far, so good. So therefore, since Rabbi Yechanan knew it's between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi, so therefore he had the right to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or like Rabbi Yossi. Says the Gemara, Amar Rab Chia bar Abba, I want you to know that the day that Rabbi Lazar missed the best medrash, Rabbi Yechanan Taka said this. Halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. But you should know, Chazar boy Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan changed his mind. Rabbi Yechanan ended up paskining like the Tanakama. Amar Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, I know why he changed his mind. That if it's true that Rabbi Yechanan changed his mind, it must have been Mimas Nisan, from a Braisa, that was taught in the vineyard. The vineyard refers to the yeshiva in Yavne. It's called Kerem B'Yavne, that there were rows and rows of benches of people learning Torah. It was very organized, just like a vineyard is rows and rows of grapes. Chal Divrei Torah is like Mayim. There's different levels of Mayim. There's Yayin, and the level of learning in Yavne was in the level of Yayin, Yena Shel Torah, the hidden parts of the Torah, the Seid Shel Torah. So that's an expression we find in Chazal, Keren B'Yavne. That over there in Keren B'Yavne we learn the Tanya, Omar Rabbi Shmuel B'nai Shel Rabbi Yechon ben Breika, Shomati Mipi Chachamim, not one Rav Meir. We heard in the name of all of the sages B'Keren B'Yavne that Kulan Sirichos Lahamtin Shloisha Chadashim. Not only from Nesuyos to Nesuyos, from Arusais to Nesuyos, from Arusais to Arusais, from a woman who's old, who's sick, who can't give birth, from a man who was not there, who was Bebeis Asurim. You always have to wait 3 months. And since there is a Braisa that quoted Rabbi Shmuel Benoi, right, of Rabbi Yechon ben Breika, that says that the Chachamim said you have to wait. So now that Rabbi Yechanan heard that, he realized it's not only Rav Meir, it's everyone. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi is Das Yachid. He took it back. He doesn't paskin like them. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah told Rabbi Zrika that Ki alat likamei de Rabbi Bohu, when you will meet Rabbi Bohu, do me a favor, Ramelei, ask him the following question. Me, Amar Rabbi Yosi, how even initially could have Rabbi Yechanan said that halacha ki Rabbi Yosi, v'ha'amar Rabbi Yechanan, these are good rules to remember. Rabbi Yechanan said halacha ki stam Mishnah. Now, Ronnie made a good point. Whenever the Mishnah doesn't give a name, the rule normally is that the opinion is Rav Meir, because Rabbi Yehuda Hanosi's teacher was Rav Meir. Rav Meir's teacher was Rabbi Akiva. So we find many times it's Rav Meir or it's Rabbi Akiva. But why didn't he say the din b'shem oimrei? Normally you're supposed to say the name by the name of its author. The reason why Rebbe doesn't give an author to a din is because one of Rebbe's ways of saying the halacha is like this is by writing down that opinion without giving it a name. So even if initially Rabbi Yechanan didn't know the Braisa that was taught B'Keren B'Yavne, and even if initially Rabbi Yechanan thought that our Tanakama is only Rabbi Meir, still, he should not have said halacha ki Rabbi Yosi, because the fact that the Rebbe wrote it without saying Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's called, he wrote it as a stam, he wrote it without an author, and Rabbi Yechanan himself said halacha ki stam Mishnah. So how did Rabbi Yechanan say like Rabbi Yosi? The Tanan, it says in our Mishnah, Kol hanashim, all women, lo yinasu v'lo yisarsu. I just have a diuk that in our Mishnah it says the opposite order. Look in Daf Mem Aleph. It says lo yisarsu v'lo yinasu. Achi yiyu lehem shleisha chadashim achas psulois v'achas ba'ulois. So this is the question that Rab Zreika, right, asked. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yirmiyah asked Rab Zreika to ask to Rabbi Bo, and he did. Now look at why. First of all, the Mishnah says that whoever, when you're supposed to say the name of the author, you bring redemption. Here he saved himself, because this question was not a good question. See, if Rab Zrika would have asked a question on his own name to Rabbi Bo would have given him over the head. But since he had the honesty of quoting Rabbi Bo, my friend Rabbi Yirmiyah asked me to ask you, so now that when Rabbi Bo basically said the question is not a good question, he criticized the questionnaire, so he didn't criticize the shliach, he only criticized Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Amar Lei, so Abba tells Rab Zekra that the Ramilach, the one who asked you to ask me this question, loy chash lekimchei, he did not properly look at his flour. In other words, when you grind kernels into flour, you have to look at what you're grinding. You don't want to grind brat kernels. When you learn Torah and you're comparing one Mishnah to another, one din to another, and you're speaking, look at what you're speaking. If you're speaking foolish words, it's like a person who's grinding bad flour. You know, it says in the Mishnah, Im ein kemach, ein Torah. That's what we're talking about. Because kemach and Torah here are connected. In other words, you got to make a good Torah, not a bad flour or a good flour. And why is the question not a question? Stam va'achar kach machloikasi. Ve'en halachik stam. When do we say that whenever a Rebbe wrote a Mishnah without giving its author, even if between us we know it's only the opinion of one, But the fact that Rebbe wrote it stam, he means to say that this is the halacha. That is, if the final time he addressed this din in an entire seder of Mishnayos, Rashi says, not only in this Masechta. The final time he mentioned this din, he writes it without an author. That's one of the ways Rebbe is saying this is the halacha. However, but whenever in one entire seder, Rebbe once writes it stam. And later, not only in this Pedic, in this Masechta, in any place in this Seder, Rebbe writes this din again, and he writes an argument, and he writes names. No, it's the first time he wrote it stam. But then he wrote it b'machloikes, then the halacha is not like stam. In our Mishnah, who does he quote? First he quotes stam. Then what does he quote? Not only one opinion, then he quotes a machloikes, because in our Mishnah there's really three opinions. Because there is a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi details about Rabbi Yehuda says that the chassan and kala in the area of Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi disagrees with that, but he adds the widow. So this is a machlekes, this is a stam, v'chakach machlekes. The Amar of Papa v'temer Rabbi Yechanan, machlekes v'chakach stam, only then halachik is stam. But stam v'chakach machlekes ain't halachik is stam. Period. So Gavaldik. Nothing really changed. In other words, before Rabbi Yechanan found out that the Tanakama is a Das Rabim, as he heard in the Kerem B'Yavna, the Rebbe did not paskin like the Tanakama. It's a Stam B'Charkach Machlokes. And Rabbi Yossi, Nemuka Imai. That's why Rabbi Yechanan initially said, Halachik Rabbi Yossi. It's only later when he found out that it's a Rabbim that he paskin like the Rabbim. Let's hop another few lines. Now the Gemara says that Mistamich v'Azal Rababo Akasbi the Rab Nachum Shemai. That Rab Abohu was leaning. We had this expression before once. Together. Here. On the shoulders of Rav Nachum, his helper. And as he's walking and leaning, Menaket v'Azal Hilchas Aminei. Rav Nachum, who was serving, being Meshamish, the great Rababo, was utilizing his time, was chapping arayin and asking Rababo questions. Boy minei, he asked him, listen here, Rababo, machlekes v'acharkach stam mai, amalei whenever there's a machlekes first and then the stam, halachik is stam. Stam v'acharkach machlekes mai, amalei ein halachik is stam. You don't always say that it's like stam. However, this is the question. If in Rebbe's Mishnah he only wrote this din as a stam, or at the end in this Seder he wrote a stam, but in the Braisas, in the teachings that were taught outside the yeshiva of Rebbe, there we learned the machlekes mai. Amalei, Rababo tells him, halachik is stam. What about the opposite? If in the Mishnah there's a machlekes and there's a stam in the Braisa mai, Amar lei daf mem gimel amad aleph on the top. This is a very famous expression that I use by Hasidim. V'chi Rebbe loy shena'a Rab Chia min layin loy. Normally Braisas are attributed to Rab Chia, but it's not only Rab Chia. There are many Braisas. What the Gemara is saying here is, what Rababo told him is, that this concept of we learn from the way Rebbe ordered the Mishnayos, first Machlekes and then Stam, versus first Stam and then Machlekes. We know the halacha, that's only in the Mishnayos itself. What is learned outside the Mishnah of Rebbe doesn't count for this. No, it's V'chi Rebbe. If Rebbe didn't learn it in the Mishnah, so Rab Chia minayin loy, we don't take into account that which Rab Chia wrote. That's the meaning here, what Rababo meant. Chasidim say that the Rebbe loy shena'a, that if you don't see a Rebbe at least once a year, is Chaim minayin loy, how will you live? That you should at least see the Rebbe once a year. Okay, we'll stop here and we will continue tomorrow.